Hare Krishna, welcome to this episode of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And in this episode, this is part 6 of the glories of Lord Nityananda, and we are actually studying his expansion, who is Lord Mahavishnu, the origin of all the universes. Just before we begin, just give me a second. Okay, we will start with the prayers and then we will continue to the main verse under discussion. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Welcome to this part 6 of the glories of Lord Nityananda. And today's topic, we are actually continuing the reading of the glories of Lord Mahavishnu, an expansion of Lord Nityananda. So we have already studied about Lord Sankarshan in the spiritual world. In the material world, his expansions are Lord Mahavishnu, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, Kshirodakashaya Vishnu, and Shesha, Ananta Shesha. So we will continue the main verse that is being expanded upon. So the glories of Lord Nityananda in the Chaitanya Charitamrita are among the first 14 important verses of Chaitanya Charitamrita. If you see Chaitanya Charitamrita, the first 14 verses are very, very important, powerful verses. And then the first 8 chapters of the Adilila of Chaitanya Charitamrita are dedicated to explain these first 14 verses. So we have already finished the first 6 verses which explain the glories of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now the next 5 verses from 7 to 11 explain the glories of Lord Nityananda. The first one, which is the 7th verse in the 14, but the first about Lord Nityananda, that summarizes his entire glories, saying that his expansions are Sankarshan, Mahavishnu, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, Kshirodakashaya Vishnu, and Sheshanag. Now, the next 4 verses explain about Sankarshan in the spiritual world and the 3 Purushavatars, which is Mahavishnu, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, and Kshirodakashaya Vishnu, and Sheshanag, which are manifested in the material world. So, we are actually reading the 3rd verse, 3rd about Nityananda, but 9th in the first 14. Which is now about Mahavishnu. The 7th or the first verse is about the summary, second or the eighth verse is the about Sankarshan. This is about Mahavishnu. So we'll read this main verse, chant this main one, and then we will go to the part where we are supposed to continue from. Alright, so Maya Bharta Janda Sangha Shete Sakshat Karanam Bodhi Madhye Yasyaikam Shri Pumanadi Devas Tam Shri Nityananda Ramam Prapadye. I offer my full obeisances under the feet of Sri Nityananda Ram, whose partial representation called Karanodakashaya Vishnu, lying on the Karana ocean, is the original Purusha, the master of the illusory energy and the shelter of all the universes. Nityananda Prabhu's partial representation is Karanodakashaya Vishnu. So we will go to this verse. We have stopped at 5.66 in the last session. Adilila, chapter 5, text 66. So we'll continue from 67. Just to give a recap of what this translation is, 66. The reflected rays of his body, Mahavishnu's body, mix with Maya, and thus Maya gives birth to myriad universes. So now from his body there are many universes that are coming out, and he impregnates just with his vision, or here it is said from the rays that are emanating from his body. He has impregnated the material world. Now in each of these universes he again enters. Aganya ananta jata anda sannivesh tatarupe purusha kore sabate prakash. The Purusha enters each and every one of the countless universes. He manifests himself in as many separate forms as there are universes. Now you try to understand. There are three Purusha avatars. One is Karanodakashaya Vishnu, next is Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, and then Kshirodakashaya Vishnu. Three. Although there are three names, but actually they are infinite in number. Why? Because there is one Karanodakashaya Vishnu from whom all the universes come. Now, how many universes are there? Innumerable, infinite. Now, in each of these universes, he enters as Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, who is the second Purusha avatar. But because he is entering into infinite universes, there are infinite number of Garbhodakashaya Vishnus. Right? But in each universe, there is one Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. But then he again expands himself into Kshirodakashaya Vishnu. Kshirodakashaya Vishnu lies in the milk ocean, on the Seshanag. But he also expands as the Paramatma, who is not only situated in every heart of every living entity, but even in the atoms. Anda antarastha paramanu chayantarastham. So he enters into the universe, and then he enters into every single atom. Now how many atoms are there in this universe? Infinite. So infinite number of Kshirodakashaya Vishnus in this universe as Paramatma, one Garbhodakashaya Vishnu in this universe, but then there are innumerable universes, so there are innumerable Garbhodakashaya Vishnus. Now just imagine, Kshirodakashaya Vishnu is infinite times infinite. So he has expanded himself into infinite forms in this way. So you see here, the Purusha enters each and every one of the countless universes. He manifests himself in as many separate forms as there are universes. Now, next. Purusha nasate jabe bahiraya svasa nishvasa sahite hoy brahmanda prakash. When the Purusha exhales, the universes are manifested with each outward breath. That is the power of Lord Mahavishnu. When the Purusha exhales, the universes are manifested with each outward breath. This is Mahavishnu. Punarapi shvasa jabe praveshe antare shvasa saha brahmanda paishe purusha sharire. Thereafter, when he inhales, all the universes again enter his body. Purport. In his form as Karanodakashaya Vishnu, the Lord impregnates material nature by his glance. The transcendental molecules of that glance are particles of spirit or spiritual atoms which appear in different species of life according to the seeds of their individual karma from the previous cosmic manifestation. Try to understand now. When he sees the universes, when he looks at the universes, that sight is spiritual. Now, when we look at something, we are gaining knowledge from that. It's not a karmendriya. We have karmendriya is the senses of working, and the senses of knowledge acquiring. What is it called even? I don't even know. Gyanendriya? I think so. Gyanendriya means the senses which for acquiring knowledge, and then karmendriya is the senses with which we act in this world. Now, our eyes are Gyanendriya. That means when we see something, we acquire knowledge about that thing. Karmendriya means we are outputting our creativity sometimes it may not be creativity. It's just that we are outputting something into this world through those senses. That is karmendriya. What are the 5 Gyanendriyas first? Eyes, nose, tongue, ears and touch. So, the skin. So, these are the 5 Gyanendriya. When something touches, we get knowledge about that thing. Now, karmendriya are the 2 hands, 2 legs, and then the tongue for speaking, the power of speech, and the genitals and the anus. So, these 5 are karmendriya. The first is Gyanendriya. So, now our eyes give us knowledge. We cannot do karma with our eyes. We cannot do any action with our eyes. We can see and get information. So, it's Gyanendriya. But Krishna is doing something here. It's very interesting. The transcendental, you see how Srila Prabhupada explains, the transcendental molecules of that glance are particles of spirit or spiritual atoms which appear in different species of life according to the seeds of their individual karma from the previous cosmic manifestation. So now, with his glance, he is transferring the molecules of that glance. That means we are the molecules. We are the spiritual molecules. Tiny, 1/10,000th part of the tip of the hair. केशाग्र बालाग्र शतभागस्य शतधा कल्पितस्य च जीवो भागो सविज्ञेय सचानन्त्याय कल्पते. Upanishads, Mundaka Upanishad says this, and Shvetashvatara Upanishad also. What is that? 1/10,000th part of the tip of the hair is the size of the soul, and that's the molecule, spiritual molecule. Now, when we say the sight, the glance of the Lord is spiritual, what is spiritual? Spirit means living. Matter is dead. We, the spirit, we, the soul, are living. So, when he is looking at it, spiritual means there is living entities which are going from here to there, and that's basically impregnation, which with a material body can only be done through the genitals, through sexual intercourse. But the Lord can do the function of the genitals through his eyes. Angani yasya sakalendriya vrittimanti. So, in this way, the transcendental molecules of the glance are particles of spirit or spiritual atoms which appear in different species of life. Now, who are those molecules? Who are those people who are going into this material world? In the previous term of creation or in the previous creation, so the bhutva praliyate, the universes, when he exhales, all the universes become manifest into this world. And then when he inhales, all the universes go back into him. So, and he inhales not only from his nose, Angani yasya sakalendriya vrittimanti, so from every part of his body. Exhale, inhale. So, such creation and destruction is repeatedly taking place. Just like we breathe, exhale, inhale. Like that, these universes are created, destroyed. See? So, the previous creation, that means when these universes are coming out of the exhalation and then the Lord is looking at them, what is happening there? The souls which did not complete their spiritual path in the previous term of existence, previous exhalation of Mahavishnu. Those souls, during the inhalation, they are merged into the body of Mahavishnu, and when the exhalation again happens, they are again impregnated into the material nature, and they acquire different bodies according to their previous work, which they did, trillions of years ago. So in this way, the movement of living entities, the creation is all taking place. This is real science of creation, not the stupid Big Bang, which the scientists say, which has no meaning, no purpose, nothing, simply something exploded and everybody came out. What is this nonsense? Here is full meaningful creation. Every creation is meaningful, right? There is a purpose behind any creation. Like even when we create something, there is a purpose behind such creation. So the Lord does, how can there be no purpose in the Lord's creation? So, and the Lord Himself, continuing from the purport, and the Lord Himself by His partial representation creates a body of innumerable universes and again enters each of those universes as Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. His coming in contact with Maya is explained in the Bhagavad Gita by a comparison between air and the sky. The sky enters everything material, yet it is far away from us. So his entrance into this material world, Vishnu means the one who enters. So when he enters into this material world, he does not become conditioned by the material world. He is like the sky. The sky enters even the room. But we don't say, I'm flying in the sky now because I'm in the room, because sky is here. No, sky is very high, but at the same time sky is in the room also. Untouched by the room though. In fact, the existence of the room depends on the existence of the sky, because sky means the space and the room exists within that space. Although the sky again exists within the room, it's not that the sky is actually entering or touching anything in the room. No, in fact the room is in the sky. All accommodating space is what we call sky. His coming in contact with Maya is explained in the Bhagavad Gita by a comparison between air and the sky. The sky enters everything material, yet it is far away from us. Actually, which is that verse? I don't know which one, but Matsthani sarva bhutani nachaham deshvavasthitah, that one we can know. But sky and air, I don't know where the exact example was given. But 9.4 comes the closest to me, what I understand. So, maya tatamidam sarvam jagad avyaktamurtina matsthani sarva bhutani nachaham deshvavasthitah. By me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. So, this is how the Lord is existing. Next verse. Gavakshera randhre jena trasarenu chale Purusher Lomakope Brahmander Jale. Just as atomic particles of dust pass through the openings of a window, so the networks of universes pass through the pores of the skin of the Purusha. Just imagine, when you open the window early in the morning, and then there is this dust, all these molecules of dust that we see through the screen. That's how each of the universes are as they come out from the hole of pores of the body of the Mahavishnu. Just imagine the size. And of course, the universes are not in their full size when they are actually coming out from the pores. They expand after that. That is also there. But still, for the universes to come out from the pores of the skin of Mahavishnu, if you see the window as one pore, as one pore, there are how many thousands of particles of dust that we see coming from one window. Like that, thousands and millions of universes from each of those pores. Not just like one pore, one universe. No, millions from one pore. There's no limit. We can't even think. Dimitri is saying 9.6. Let's see 9.6. Oh wow, yes, that's correct. Thank you, Dimitri Prabhu. I think. Yeah, there's actually two verses after them. After this 9.4, which we read. यथाकाशस्थितो नित्यं वायुः सर्वत्र गोमहान् तथा सर्वाणि भूतानि मत्स्थानि उपधारय. Understand that as the mighty wind blowing everywhere rests always in the sky, all created beings rest in me. Excellent. 9.6. So, going back. Okay. This is from the Brahma Samhita. Yasya ekaniश्वसित कालमथावलम्ब्य जीवन्ति लोम विलजा जगदण्डनाथाः विष्णुर्महान् सैह यस्य कला विशेषो गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि. The Brahmas and other lords of the mundane worlds appear from the pores of Mahavishnu and remain alive for the duration of his one exhalation. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, of whom Mahavishnu is a portion of a plenary portion. Purport. This description of the Lord's creative energy is from the Brahma Samhita 5.48, which Lord Brahma compiled after his personal realization. When Mahavishnu exhales, the spiritual seeds of the universes, you see this? The spiritual seeds of the universes emanate from him in the form of molecular particles like those that are visible 3 times the size of an atom. Oh wow. When sunlight is diffused through a small hole. Now, 3 times the size of an atom is a Paramanu. I think that description all is there in the, if I'm not wrong, yeah. So this is 3.11.5. Anurdvau paramanu syat trasarenustrayah smritah jalarkarashmyavagatah khammevanupatannagat. The division of gross time is calculated as follows. 2 atoms make 1 double atom and 3 double atoms make 1 hexatom. This hexatom is visible in the sunshine which enters through the holes of a window screen. One can clearly see that the hexatom goes up towards the sky. So this is how it's explained in the Bhagavatam. This is actually the description of time and how time is actually calculated. How we get this second, minutes and hours, and it very, very scientific. I mean, even modern science can't match this accuracy of description. So, let's read that again. When Mahavishnu exhales, the spiritual seeds of the universes, just like a tree can be very big, but the seed is very small. Like banyan tree is so big, but the seed of that tree is very, very small. So the universes, which are very massive, but when they actually come out from the body of Mahavishnu, they're very small, like seeds, like atoms almost. That's why the scientists, they have noticed that the universe is expanding, so they have concluded that if it is expanding, that means it must have come from must have come from a single point. They are not wrong in that actually. But what is that point, that seed, and where it is coming from, that point, they have no idea. In these days, okay, let's read that again. When Mahavishnu exhales, the spiritual seeds of the universes emanate from him in the form of molecular particles like those that are visible 3 times the size of an atom when sunlight is diffused through a small hole. In these days of atomic research, it will be a worthwhile engagement for atomic scientists to learn from this statement how the entire creation develops from the spiritual atoms emanating from the body of the Lord. So now Srila Prabhupada is suggesting that modern scientists conduct research if they really, because anyway they are wasting their time in research, instead of wasting, let them spend time on research based on the knowledge that is given in these Shastric descriptions. So he is suggesting that in these days of atomic research, it will be a worthwhile engagement for atomic scientists to learn from the statement how the entire creation develops from the spiritual atoms emanating from the body of the Lord. So, of course, a devotee does not engage his time much in this atomic research, but for a person who is speculating, for him, let him speculate within the realm of Vedic injunctions. So like that, by using like that, that is a dedication of one's intelligence in the service of the Lord. Pranair, Arthair, Dhiya, Vacha. 4 things we can surrender to the Lord or engage ourselves in the service of the Lord through these 4 things, mediums, which is life, Pranair, Arthair, wealth, Dhiya, intelligence, and Vacha, words. So they can use their intelligence in the service of the Lord in this way. Of course, a devotee who is actively serving the Lord, he will also use his intelligence. It's not that he is not intelligent when he is serving the Lord. No. He uses his intelligence how to execute the service. Whereas the jnanis, they are trying to use their intelligence to understand the Lord. Of course, the speculators are just relying solely on their intelligence. Whereas the jnani yogis are those who want to have knowledge but who take guidance from Krishna. Like here, oh, this is the size of an atom. So they are taking knowledge from the scriptures and then they are trying to understand that in the physical and intellectually. So that is guided speculation, I would say. So speculating still, or researching, but guided research, not whimsical, completely unguided research, whimsical research. So the Lord is giving guidance here, and they can do that if they want. But the devotee, he is more interested in using his intelligence in engaging in his service. Like Hanuman, he apparently came from monkey species, but he used his intelligence. When he went to Lanka, his mission was to find the Miss Universe. Basically, he was a brahmachari. His mission was to find the Miss Universe, and she nowadays these pageants go Miss Universe, Miss World. What Miss Universe? As if they have competed against all the women of the universe. No. So Mother Sita was the most beautiful woman, and here is a brahmachari, Hanuman. His mission was to find the most beautiful woman, but not for his enjoyment, for the Lord's enjoyment. And therefore he was not disturbed, even though he was only looking at all the women of the Lanka. That was his service. But he was not agitated because he was always wanting to serve the Lord in that. And he was using his intelligence. He never saw. There was no photo, okay, wanted list. Okay, this is the picture, go and find. No. He had to just hear the descriptions. And that's it. Of course, he once only saw when Ravan was actually kidnapping her, but how much you can, grasp the features. So, in that way, he was using his intelligence to find out Mother Sita. And also later on, when the war was going on, he was asked to bring Sanjeevani. And he went all the way to Himalayas, but he is not a doctor by profession. And how can he bring Sanjeevani if he doesn't know what that plant is? So he said, okay, I will use my intelligence. What is the intelligence? I am not strong, this is not my strength in finding out what is the correct herb. I am not a doctor, but my strength is my power, my muscle strength. So I will carry the whole hill there, let the doctor choose which one is the correct herb. So that is intelligence again. So a devotee's intelligence who is actively engaged in Krishna's service, he uses intelligence in service. Or of course, he also contemplates very much on the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. That's very needed also. You see? Vijay Sharma Prabhu is saying, the 3 atom size mentioned, are they spiritual or material, and are they the same size as the atoms that scientists know about? Yes. So the hexatom is the one which we can actually see in the screen when the light is coming through the window. So that is the material atom. But here it is said spiritual seeds. So the seed is the size of this atom, and from that the entire universe expands, from the statements that we are reading. Actually, if we see any creation, let alone the universe, but any sub-creation within the universe also starts in the same exact way. Like the seed, for example, it's so small and then it becomes big. And then we are so small when the intercourse actually happens, it's like a pea size, a pea shaped, just very, 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 very small, and then we expand, right? So everything we can see, that's the pattern in every creation. It starts off small and then expands, and then again dwindles and vanishes. So we have already read this one. Wow, this is, what is this? 10:14:11 by Lord Brahma. This is not from the Brahma Samhita though, this is from Srimad Bhagavatam. Kvaham tamo mahadaham khajaragnivarbhu samveshtitanda ghata saptavitastikayaham kvedrigvidha viganitanda paranucharya vatadvaroma vivarasya chate mahitvam. Beautiful verse. Where am I? Brahma is saying to Krishna, where am I? A small creature of 7 spans the measure of my own hand. I am enclosed in the universe composed of material nature, the total material energy, false ego, ether, air, water and earth. And what is your glory? Unlimited universes pass through the pores of your body just like particles of dust passing through the opening of a window. Wow. Unlimited universes pass through the pores of your body just like the particles of dust passing through the opening of a window. Whereas I am in one of those particles, each universe is like one particle there, and then in that universe I am enclosed and I am like one small creature there, and then I am comparing myself to you. This is my audacity. So look at just my foolishness. So Brahma is kind of repenting his mistake. Now, from this we can understand, at least for me, it's not completely clear to me whether the universes are compared to it is said actually seeds, yeah. So I was thinking whether the universes are actually compared to the particles of dust from the screen through the window, or they actually are the size of the spirituals, the seeds which are very small. In the previous verse it is saying that the seeds. Anyway, either way, even then, it's huge, the body of Mahavishnu. When Lord Brahma, purport of 5.72, when Lord Brahma, having stolen all Krishna's calves and cowherd boys, returned and saw that the calves and boys were still roaming with Krishna, he offered this prayer, 10:14:11, and in his defeat. A conditioned soul, even one so great as Brahma, who manages the affairs of the entire universe, cannot compare to the personality of Godhead, for he can produce numberless universes simply by the spiritual rays emanating from the pores of his body. Material scientists should take lessons from the utterances of Sri Brahma regarding our insignificance in comparison to God. In these prayers of Brahma, there is much to learn for those who are falsely puffed up by the accumulation of power. True. Amshera Amsha Jai Kalataranam Govindera Pratimurti Shri Balaram. A part of a whole is called a Kala. Shri Balaram is the counter form of Lord Govinda. Counter form. So a part of a whole. So a part is called Amsha. And Amshera Amsha, that means the Amsha of an Amsha, is called Kala. So the portion of Krishna, first plenary portion of Krishna is Balram. From Balram, another portion is, next expansion is Chaturvyuha, Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. And then from that Sankarshan, again expansion, second quadruple. And then from that Sankarshan, Mahasankarshan, the Mahavishnu comes, and then Garbhodakashaya, Kshirodakashaya. Let's just see that Amshera Amsha, this Kala. That's why it is said in this, if you have noticed, in this Brahma Samhita verse, the 2 verses ago, Kala Vishesho, Vishnur Mahan Sa Iha Yasya Kala Vishesho. That Mahavishnu, who is so huge, massive, he is just Kala of Krishna. Amshera Amsha of Krishna. That is why this explanation is given here. तार एक स्वरूप श्री महासंकर्षण तार अंश पुरुष होय कलाते गणन. Balram's own expansion is called Mahasankarshan, and his fragment, the Purusha, is counted as a Kala or a part of a plenary portion. Jaha keta Kala kohi tiho Mahavishnu Mahapurushavatari teho Sarvajishnu. I say that this Kala is Mahavishnu. He is the Mahapurusha who is the source of the other Purushas and who is all pervading. Garbhoda Kshirodashai Dohe Purusha Nam Shaidu Ijara Amsha Vishnu Vishwadham. Shaidu Ijara Amsha Vishnu Vishwadham. Garbhodashai and Kshirodashai are both called Purushas. They are plenary portions of Karanodashai, the first Purusha, who is the abode of all the universes. Okay, before we go further, we'll take this question by Dimitri. He says, I am a bit confused. What's the difference between Brahma's creation and Mahavishnu? Brahma creates living beings when his day arrives, 8:19, and Mahavishnu creates universes, including Brahma inside of it, right? Well, partly right. So, Mahavishnu creates these universes, and then he enters as Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, and from the navel of Garbhodakashaya Vishnu comes this lotus, sprouts the lotus flower, and on that lotus flower is born Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma is given the intelligence by Garbhodakashaya Vishnu to create the other planets of the universe and also the living entities. All the bodies of the living entities. So Brahma has sons, and they are called Prajapatis, and they marry, and then they produce the children, and then different species come about. So much description is there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So what Brahma does is secondary creation, sub-creation, and that too getting intelligence from Krishna, how to create. And every night Brahma sleeps for 4.32 billion years in earthly calculation. At that time, the Garbha ocean rises in level, the level of the ocean, and the water level rises, and all the 7 planetary systems below the earth are submerged. Earth is submerged. Bhuloka, Bhuvarloka, Swargaloka is submerged. Only Janaloka, Mahaloka, Tapoloka, Satyaloka are still above the water. And when Brahma wakes up, when he looks down from the lotus, he gets afraid, because the water level has come so high up. When the water is like deep, down, and then suddenly when you wake up and then you see the water level just here, you'll be terrified, right? And the entire universal waters. So that happens every morning of Brahma. Every morning he wakes up with a shock. And then the water subsides after that, and then he has to create the entire planetary systems from Svargaloka down. All the planetary systems he has to recreate. And then he forgets how to do that. Every day he forgets. And then the Lord gives him inspiration how to create, and then he remembers, and then he creates again. Garbhodashaya and Kshirodashaya are both Purushas. They are plenary portions of Karanodashaya Vishnu, the first Purusha who is the abode of all the universes. Purport. The symptoms of the Purusha are described in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita. While describing the incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the author has quoted from the Vishnu Puran 6.8.59, where it is said, "Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto Purushottam, Lord Krishna, who is always free from the contamination of the six material dualities, whose plenary expansion Mahavishnu glances over matter to create the cosmic manifestation, who expands himself in various transcendental forms, all of which are one and the same, who is the master of all living entities, who is always free and liberated from the contamination of material energy, and who, when he appears in this material world, seems one of us, although he has an eternally spiritual, blissful, transcendental form." Wow. This is a verse from Vishnu Puran 6.8.59. Everything is mentioned in this one verse. If only the Sanskrit was also quoted, right? In summarizing this statement, Rupa Goswami has concluded that the plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who acts in cooperation with the material energy, is called the Purusha. This is from where? Laghu Bhagavatamrita Purva Khanda 2.9, where it has been quoted from the Satvata Tantra. Vishnostu त्रीणि रूपाणि पुरुषाख्यान्यथो विदुः एकं तु महतः स्रष्ट द्वितीयं त्वण्डसंस्थितं तृतीयं सर्वभूतस्थं तानि ज्ञात्वा विमुच्यते. Vishnu has three forms called Purushas. The first, Mahavishnu, is the creator of the total material energy, Mahat. The second is Garbhodashai, who is situated within each universe. And the third is Kshirodashai, who lives in the heart of every living being. He who knows these three becomes liberated from the clutches of Maya. Next, 5.78. Yadyapi kohiye tare Krishner kala kore Matsya Kurmadhyavatarer Tiho Avatari. Although Karanodashai Vishnu is called a Kala of Lord Krishna, he is the source of Matsya, Kurma and the other incarnations. Actually, in this material world, in this universe, all the incarnations that come forth come from Karanodashai Vishnu. Oh, I knew I would be asked this question and I don't know the answer. Prabhuji, what are the six material dualities? I don't know. Shita Ushna, Labha Labha, Jaya Jaya. I don't know. I'm just making wild guesses here. What are the six material dualities? When I was reading that sentence, I was thinking myself, what are the six material dualities? But since I don't know, I just carried forward. But you stopped me there with that question. And I don't have the answer, to be very honest. Sukha Dukha, yeah. We can make those guesses. I'm guessing also the same things, but I think so. Until we have a verse that actually proves that way, we can't say for certain though. So this is a verse from Bhagavatam 1.3.28 actually, 5.79 here. Ete cham shakalah pumsah Krishnasthu Bhagavan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Mridayanti Yuge Yuge. You see, cha ete cha amsha kalaha Pumsah. Amsha is there, Kala is there. Two words. You see, Amsha Kala, part or part of the part. So, in the chapter 1.3 of Srimad Bhagavatam, the various incarnations are mentioned. And after mentioning many incarnations, about I think 26 in number if I am not wrong, then this verse is quoted saying that all these incarnations that are mentioned are portions of plenary portions of the Lord, but Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam. He is the original personality of Godhead, Krishna. So, translation: all these incarnations of Godhead are either plenary portions or parts of the plenary portions of the Purusha avatars. But Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. In every age means yuga, in every yuga, He protects the world through His different features when the world is disturbed by the enemies of Indra. Shei Purusha Srishti Sthiti Pralayera Karta Nana Avatara Kore Jagatera Bharta. That Purusha, Karanodakshaya Vishnu, is the performer of creation, maintenance and destruction. He manifests Himself in many incarnations, for He is the maintainer of the world. He manifests Himself in many incarnations, for He is the maintainer of the world. So, see the creation, maintenance and destruction. We have a verse from the Brahma Samhita which says that Srishti Sthiti Pralaya Sadhana Shakti Reka Chaye Vayasya Bhuvanani Bibharti Durga. Now, is that contradictory? Ichhanurupam abhiyasya cha cheshtate sa govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Here, now just see the word Srishti Sthiti Pralaya. Now here it is said Srishti Sthiti Pralayar Karta. Karanodakshaya Vishnu is the performer of creation, maintenance and destruction. And here it is said Maya or Durga is the Karta of Srishti, Sthiti and Pralaya. So, here the translation is, the external potency Maya, who is of the nature of the shadow of the Chit potency, is worshipped by all people as Durga, the creating, preserving and destroying agency of this mundane world. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, in accordance with whose will Durga conducts herself. Now, so is Durga the performer of creation, maintenance and destruction, or is it Karanodakshaya Vishnu? Two verses are saying two separate things. How to understand this? So, you have to go to Bhagavad Gita. In the meantime, you can write any comments how you think it can be answered, but I don't think you will have much time because I'm just going to take the verse out. So this is from the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, chapter 6, text 9. So here lies the answer. Tamishvaranam paramam maheshwaram tam devatanam paramam cha devatam patim patinam paramam parastad vidama devam bhuvanesha medyam natasya karyam karanam cha vidyate natat samascha drishyate parasya shaktir vividhaiva shruyate svabhaviki jnana balakriyacha. Especially these two lines. These two lines are the answer for that question. Anyway, let's read the whole thing. The Supreme Lord is the controller of all other controllers, and He is the greatest of all the diverse planetary leaders. Every one is under His control. All entities are delegated with particular power only by the Supreme Lord. They are not supreme themselves. So this is also an answer, part of the answer. So that means everybody are delegated with particular power only by the Supreme Lord. So when the Lord does, He employs His energies to do it. Let me explain. Let us read this first. They are not supreme themselves. He is also worshipable by all demigods and is the supreme director of all directors. Therefore, he is transcendental to all kinds of material leaders and controllers and is worshipable by all. There is no one greater than him, and he is the supreme cause of all causes. He does not possess bodily form like that of an ordinary living entity. There is no difference between his body and his soul. He is absolute. All his senses are transcendental. Any one of his senses can perform the action of any other sense. Actually, this is not part of that Sanskrit at all, but this is how it is explained because taken from other verses. But anyway, therefore, no one is greater than him or equal to him. His potencies are multifarious, and thus his deeds are automatically performed as a natural sequence. Now, let's take the example of the iPhone. The iPhone is attributed, or the creation or the invention of the iPhone is attributed to Steve Jobs. Now, we talk like Steve Jobs is the creator of the iPhone, the smartphone era. Now, although that is a fact, but he did not actually manufacture the circuit board and then he soldered all those wires and whatever. He did not do all that. He employed his so many people who worked under him. He is the boss. So you still will say Steve Jobs is the inventor of the iPhone and he is the one who created and everything. But at the same time, he is not the actual one who sat down on the desk, and he is not the one who is the the design engineer or the everything. No, he is not doing all those things. He has his energies, delegated. He delegated all the different tasks to his employees and project managers and whatever. So, likewise, of course, in this material world, Steve Jobs could not have done everything together. He needed all those thousands of people to work under him. But in the case of the Lord, though, he can alone do it. But still he employs thousands and millions of demigods. And Durga is one such demigod. And he invests the power of creation, destruction and maintenance to her. So he still does, but he delegates that task to her. And therefore she is the immediate cause. And then he is the remote cause of such maintenance. Just like the potter's wheel is the immediate cause of the pot, but the potter himself is the remote cause of the pot. So you wouldn't say that the potter wheel actually created the pot. It's the potter who has created the pot, using the potter wheel as the instrument. So similarly, Durga is nothing but an instrument in the hands of Krishna. And therefore, sometimes it is said, Durga is the cause of Srishti, Sthiti, Pralaya. But then again, the word is used, Chhayeva yasya bhuvanani bibharti Durga. That is important. Ichhanurupa Chhayeva means like a shadow. Chhaya means shadow. So the shadow only moves when you move. So when Krishna moves, the shadow potency, which is Durga, she moves. So she executes this Srishti, Sthiti, Pralaya under the order of Krishna. Ichhanurupam. Ichha means the will, in accordance with the will of Govinda, of Krishna. So in accordance with the will of Krishna, she conducts herself. Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shrudal. So try to remember this, because this is very important. Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva. Vividhaiva means multifarious. Parasya Shaktir, his spiritual energies are multifarious. Shruyate, that's how we hear from this Vedic literature. Swabhaviki Jnana Bala Kriyacha. This is important again. Swabhaviki means automatically, in natural sequence, without the need for his personal interference. His energies are just doing everything under his control. Now, Jnana Bala Kriyacha, what is that? Jnana means knowledge, Bala means strength, and Kriya means the endeavor. So, for anything that we do, there are three things that are necessary. If I suppose I want to start a business, I need to have Jnana Bala Kriya. What is that? Jnana means, first of all, I have to know. So, the market research. I have to have some knowledge about what I am doing and how to do it. So that is jnana. Once I get that knowledge, then I have to have capital to execute on that knowledge. Now, I may know how to build a business, but if I don't have capital, if I don't have money, I can't build a business. I need bala, I need the strength, I need the capacity. So there is bala. And then even if I have knowledge and even if I have the capacity, if I don't put my endeavor into it, it is not going to happen again. So that is kriya. So jnana, bala, kriya. Every action requires these things, ingredients. Now, swabhaviki jnana, bala, kriya cha. In the case of the Lord's energies are so multifarious and so powerful that they are doing everything, jnana, bala, kriya, as a natural sequence by themselves, without the personal interference of Krishna. Like you see the nature, you put a seed and then by nature's course the seed is becoming a big tree now. Now Krishna is not coming and actually making everything happen. No, the flowers are blooming and the nice colors. Who painted it? You don't find Krishna coming and painting each flower with a brush. No, his energies are doing that automatically. So that is the meaning, and that is how. That's why when it is said Karanodakashaya Vishnu, he does the Srishti Sthiti Pralaya, creation, maintenance, destruction, and Durga is doing the all these three. There is no contradiction in that. This is how we have to understand. He manifests himself in many incarnations, for he is the maintainer of the world. So he maintains especially the spiritual mission, dharma samsthapanarthaya. You see, dharma samsthapanarthaya, he comes and he maintains the spiritual knowledge and the spiritual knowledge and the practice and the sadhana and the method by which people can actually go back to Godhead. He especially comes down to manifest that. सृष्ट्यादि निमित्ते जय अंशेर अवधान शैत अंशेरे कही अवतार नाम शैत अंशेरे कही अवतार नाम. That fragment of the Supreme Lord known as the Mahapurusha appears for the purpose of creation, maintenance and annihilation and is called an incarnation. Avatar Nam. Adyavatar Mahapurusha Bhagavan Sarva Avatar Bija Sarvashraya Dham. That Mahapurusha is identical with the personality of Godhead. He is the original incarnation, the seed of all others, and the shelter of everything. This is from Laghu Bhagavatamrita. Oh. Adyovatarah Purushah Parasya Kalah Svabhavah Sadasanmanascha Dravyam Vikaro Guna Indriyani Virat Swarat Sthas Nucharishnu Bhumna. The Purusha, Mahavishnu, is the primary incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Time, nature, Prakriti as cause and effect, the mind, the material elements, false ego, the modes of nature, the senses, the universal form, complete independence, and the moving and non-moving beings appear subsequently as his opulences. So the primary or the first incarnation in this material world is Mahavishnu. As we know, avatar means one who descends. The definition of incarnation or an avatar is one who descends. So the one who descends from the spiritual world to the material world, he is an avatar. Now we also came from the spiritual world, but we fell down here. We did not descend, gracefully. Gracelessly we fell down. Like, I can get down the stairs gracefully, or I can tumble down the staircase gracelessly. So the second one is what we did, and the first one is what the Lord does. And He comes to help us and bring us back to the spiritual world, make us climb the staircase again, or rather carry us back, because we don't know how to deal with the staircase. So, purport. Wow. Describing the incarnations and their symptoms, the Laghu Bhagavatamrita has stated that when Lord Krishna descends to conduct the creative affairs of the material manifestation, he is an avatar or incarnation. The two categories of avatars are empowered devotees and Tadekatma Rupa, the Lord himself. An example of Tadekatma Rupa is Shesha. An example of a devotee is Vasudeva, the father of Lord Krishna. Sri Baladev Vidyabhushan has commented that the material cosmic manifestation is a partial kingdom of God, where God must sometimes come to execute a specific function. The plenary portion of the Lord, through whom Lord Krishna executes such actions, is called Mahavishnu, who is the primal beginning of all incarnations. Inexperienced observers presume that the material energy provides both the cause and the elements of the cosmic manifestation, and that the living entities are the enjoyers of material nature. But the devotees of the Bhagavad school, which has scrutinizingly examined the entire situation, can understand that material nature can independently be neither the supplier of the material elements nor the cause of the material manifestation. Material nature gets the power to supply the material elements from the glance of the Supreme Purusha Mahavishnu, and when empowered by him, she is called the cause of the material manifestation. Both features of material nature, as the cause of the material creation and as the source of its elements, exist due to the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The various expansions of the Supreme Lord, who act to empower the material energy, are known as plenary expansions or incarnations. As illustrated by the analogy of many flames lit from one flame, all these plenary expansions and incarnations are as good as Vishnu himself. Nevertheless, because of their activities in controlling Maya, sometimes they are known as Mayika, or having a relationship with Maya. This is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 2.6.42. Oh, this is not from Laghu Bhagavatam, but this is Bhagavatam. Then 5.84. What is the time? 8:45. Today I need to stop a little bit earlier, so I think until 9 we will read, and then after that I need to stop. Because tomorrow we have Gaura Purnima and we have some preparations and things which are not completed yet. Jagrihe paurusham rupam bhagavan mahadadibhi sambhutam shodashakalam adau lokasisrikshaya. 1.3.1. In the beginning of the creation, the Lord expanded himself in the form of the Purusha incarnation, accompanied by all the ingredients of material creation. First, he created the 16 principal energies suitable for creation. This was for the purpose of manifesting the material universes. Purport. This is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 1.3.1. The commentary of Madhva, that means Madhvacharya, on Srimad Bhagavatam mentions that the following 16 spiritual energies are present in the spiritual world. Now we only know spiritual energy as Yogamaya, or sometimes into three divisions, which are Samvit, Sandhini and Hladini. But now each of those have multi subcategories, and here there are mentioned 16. They are 1. Shri, Bhu, Leela, Kanti, Kirti, Tushti, Gir, Pushti, Satya, Jnana, Jaya, Utkarshini, Vimala, Yogamaya, Prahvi, Ishana and Anugraha. In his commentary on the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, Sri Baladev Vidyabhushan has said that the above energies are also known by 9 names: Vimala, Utkarshini, Jnana, Kriya, Yoga, Prahvi, Satya, Ishana and Anugraha. In the Bhagavad Sandarbha of Srila Jiva Goswami text 103, they are described as Shri, Pushti, Gir, Kanti, Kirti, Tushti, Ila, Jaya, Vidya, Maya, Samvit, Sandhini, Hladini, Bhakti, Murti, Vimala, Yoga, Prahvi, Ishana, Anugraha, etc. All these energies act in the different spheres of the Lord's supremacy. Wow. This kind of information, it's like so difficult. How can they even come up with so much? Only acharyas who know the spiritual world, they can tell very clearly because they are seeing it. When you are looking at something, you can easily describe it, right? So they are actually looking at the spiritual world, and They can directly see. So that's why they can describe in such great detail. 585. 5.85. यद्यपि सर्वाश्रयति हो ताहा ते संसार अंतरात्मा रूपेति हो jagat आधार. Although the Lord is the shelter of everything and although all the universes rest in Him, He as a super soul is also the support of everything. Prakriti sahite tara ubhaya sambandha tathapi prakriti saha nahi sparsha gandha. Although he is thus connected with the material energy in two ways, he does not have the slightest contact with it. I think this has to be the last verse actually for the day. Purport. In the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, Sri Rupa Goswami, commenting upon the Lord's transcendental position beyond material qualities, says that Vishnu, as the controller and superintendent of material nature, has a connection with the material qualities. That connection is called yoga. However, the person who directs a prison is not also a prisoner. Yeah. Similarly, although the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu directs or supervises the qualitative nature, he has no connection with the material modes of nature. The expansions of Lord Vishnu always retain their supremacy. They are never connected with the material qualities. One may argue that Mahavishnu cannot have any connection with the material qualities because if he was so connected, Srimad Bhagavatam would not state that material nature, ashamed of a thankless task of acting to induce the living entities to become averse to the Supreme Lord, remains behind the Lord in shyness. This is actually said in the 1.7.4. Bhakti yogena manasi samyak pranihite male apashyat purusham purnam mayam chatadapashrayam. Thus he fixed his mind, perfectly engaging it by linking it in devotional service, bhakti yoga, without any tinge of materialism. And thus he saw the absolute personality of Godhead along with his external energy, which was under full control. Actually, this is the verse. Yes. This is the actual verse, not the other one. Vilajjamana yayasya sthatumiksha pathe muya vimohita vikathante mamaham iti durdhiyah. The illusory energy of the Lord cannot take precedence, being ashamed of her position. But those who are bewildered by her always talk nonsense, being absorbed in thoughts of it is I and it is mine. So the illusory energy of the Lord is ashamed. So how is that relevant? The relevance is that here it is said in the purport, one may argue that Mahavishnu cannot have any connection with the material qualities, because if he were so connected, Srimad Bhagavatam would not state that material nature, ashamed of her thankless task of acting to induce the living entities to become averse to the Supreme Lord, remains behind the Lord in shyness. So you see, she is ashamed because her task is different from the Lord's mission. Her mission is exactly the opposite. Although that is the deputed task that she is given, but still, in answer to this argument, it may be said that the word guna means regulation. Lord Vishnu, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are situated within this universe as the directors of the three modes, and their connection with the modes is known as yoga. This does not indicate, however, that these personalities are bound by the qualities of nature. Lord Vishnu specifically is always the controller of the three qualities. There is no question of his coming under their control. Although the causal and element supplying features exist in material nature by dint of the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord is never affected by glancing over the material qualities. So the Lord is producing all these things, but He is not affected by such products of His creation. By the will of the Supreme Lord, the different qualitative changes in the material world take place, but there is no possibility of material affection, change, or contamination for Lord Vishnu. Now, these changes and everything happen in the material world, but in Krishna or Vishnu, there is no change. That does not mean, oh, that's boring. No, it's not boring, because here we need change, because otherwise we'll be bored. There, without change, they're not bored. For example, people, they want weekends so that they can take a break from work. See? They need a change. They need sometimes a holiday. They need sometimes to go here and there. So that's change. They need change to keep themselves alive. But the spiritualists, the devotees, do the same thing every day. Exact same thing every day. But still they are not bored. How come? Because that is the nature of spiritual activity. That it does not get bored. The more you do it, the more meaningful it becomes, and the more ecstatic one becomes. So that is the case in the case of spiritual activity, devotional service. Every day we're chanting the same mantra, Hare Krishna mantra. So, but still we're not getting bored. In fact, we're getting more inspired, and that is the sign and symptom that one is connected spiritually. That's a sign and symptom of spirit, anything that is spirit. But of course, sometimes we don't have the enthusiasm. That's because when we commit offenses, then it will temporarily, our advancement is temporarily stalled. Okay? So I think we'll stop here. We will take some questions that are there, and then we'll call it a day for today. Okay. So Prabhuji, were all the souls created at the same time like universes? No, souls are never created. Universes are created, but the souls are never created. Souls are always there merged in the body of Mahavishnu, because from the previous creation they still did not stop their nonsense activities. So we are also one of them. When the time for destruction came, their bodies were destroyed, but the souls themselves, usually what happens when the body is destroyed, he will take another birth immediately, right? But because the universe is being destroyed, the entire universe, and no universes, everything is being inhaled. So what they will do, where they will stay, and where they will get the body if the universe is gone? So they are sent back. I mean, Lord Mahavishnu absorbs them in his body, and when the next creation happens, those souls are let loose and again back into this material universe. So they are not created, because soul can never be created nor destroyed. We are eternal. So we don't have such time when we were born. No. So we're not created, just transferred. Next. Virendra is saying, Lord Krishna called the assembly of all Brahmas before our four-headed Brahma proves the existence of innumerable universes. Yes, correct. Is Mahavishnu responsible for dark matter and black holes existing in universes? So this dark matter and black holes are descriptions of the scientists. Now in the Vedic literature, the concept of a black hole, well, the name black hole is not there. The concept I do not know, but as far as I have read, I have not come across a word which is an equivalent for black hole. So the way scientists see it and the way the Vedas describe it can be different. And let us actually honestly expect such difference, because with our defective vision, we see things very differently. I was actually thinking of starting on Gaura Purnima Day, which is tomorrow, these Instagram stories that I was talking about, and one of the topics I was thinking about is opacity. And I'll make a full video on that, but the theme is this, that we call something as opaque because I can't see through it. Now X-ray can see through opaque skin. Skin is opaque, but X-ray is not. I mean, you can see through the skin and can see the bones, right? And then there is this endoscopy where you can put some scope and then you can see what is there in the intestines. And there is also this barium endoscopy or barium colonoscopy. So they put an element barium barium enema they say when they want to see the intestines, or barium endoscopy when they have to see the esophagus and the stomach and everything. So through those devices they are able to see what is inside. That means seeing inside is possible for us through some instruments, but the Lord can see without any instruments like that. And there are other beings in the universe who can see also without any instruments like what we see. X-ray. X-rays, I mean, all these actually are very primitive. It's not the Lord and even the higher demigod, they know exactly, like if you cut open the body and see all the parts, how clearly they can see without cutting the body. So this opacity, we give the name opaque to the substance because we cannot see through it. Nothing can be seen through this, so therefore it is opaque. We cannot see through it, nothing can be seen. So the defect is in us, but we put the quality onto the item and say that is opaque. Actually, we are defective in not being able to see through that. So this what I am trying to say is, this black hole and all these things, the way we see it, we may look at it, it may appear as like a black hole to us, but actually the description can be something totally different. The way we see it may not be the way the reality is actually. And the Vedas, they describe reality, and when we see with our defective perception, and if they don't match, we should not immediately reject the Vedas and be confident of our seeing power. We should understand, we should be humble enough to understand that we actually don't understand anything. So that's our position. Let me see. Vijay Sharma, are the universes coming out from the pores of Mahavishnu or out of his breathing or both? And do they go back into the pores or the nose when Mahavishnu inhales? Again, Mahavishnu, so the inhalation and exhalation, we can only do it through the nose. But the Lord is Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti. He can inhale through his eyes. He can inhale through his feet. He can inhale through his pores. Anything he can do. So his inhalation and exhalation is not limited to the nose. Understand? So this is the problem. We always compare the Lord to our state, our material body. So that's why we think, hey, how I cannot do, how can the Lord do? So we always gauge the Lord according to, this is the frog philosophy. The frog in the well tried to estimate the size of the Pacific Ocean. So it was counting, he was estimating maybe the Pacific Ocean is the size of like maybe 10 wells. One well is 3 meters wide, so maybe 30 meters, maybe 300 meters, 100 wells. But in that way he can go on, but he can never understand the actual size of Pacific Ocean like that. So like that, similarly, if we calculate the Lord's body according to our limited body, for this very reason, the Lord is described in the Upanishads and Vedas as Nirguna or Nirakar. He has no body, to indicate to us that he has no material body like what we imagine a body to be. He has a body which is totally different from anything that we can ever imagine. So because we can't understand that, it is said Nirakar. But the other meaning of Nirakar means, Nih means one is negation, the other meaning of Nih means superlative degree. So Nirakar means the best akar, the best form. And Nirakar means no form, no material form, spiritual form, and the highest. So in this way we have to understand. Next, what are the 6 material dualities? I seriously don't know. Maybe Sukha Dukkha and all these things. And Mahavishnu is Purusha, while Maya or Durga is Prakriti. Yes, correct. What else? Oh, there's a question here. Is Kshirodakasaya Vishnu cause for all incarnations, including Krishna avatar? Do all these incarnations eternally exist in spiritual world while they are performing pastimes on earth? So, it is explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 4, if I am not wrong, where it is said that usually, yes, Kshirodakasaya Vishnu is the source of all incarnations in this material world. But when Krishna comes, Kshirodakasaya Vishnu merges into Krishna and Krishna comes. So you can still say that Kshirodakasaya is the source of Krishna, but actually Krishna is the source of Kshirodakasaya Vishnu. And through him, Kshirodakasaya Vishnu merges with Krishna and they come together as avatar. Krishna is called Avatari, the source of all avatars. And yes, they also exist in the spiritual world while they are performing pastimes on earth. Again, Angani yasya sakalendriya vittimandi. And also, Goloka eva nivasatya khilatma bhuto. Krishna is actually dancing with Radharani right now in Golok Vrindavan. At the same time, he is sitting in the hearts of every single living entity. How can he do both these things? That is omnipotence. The Lord can do millions of things at the same time. Havikari. Antimatter is black hole. Have you read the book Easy Journey to Other Planets? And I really love the way Srila Prabhupada actually encouraged the scientists, although they were absolutely doing nonsense. Because there was this article, if you see the very first page, very first chapter of that, actually there are only 2 chapters, I guess, of the book. The very first page and the second page, Srila Prabhupada is encouraging that, he said, recently I have read this article in the newspaper where scientists have found antimatter, or the British would say antimatter. So there is this antimatter, and they have found that if matter and antimatter collide, then there will be a complete nullification of whatever. So Prabhupada said, this is real advancement of science. This antimatter is what human beings should concern themselves with. So this antimatter particle is described in Bhagavad Gita. Now, Srila Prabhupada is talking about antimatter, and they are also talking about antimatter, but both are talking about different antimatters. And he encouraged them, yes, antimatter is good. This is what actually should be the goal of human research, scientific research, because then he defined properly what is antimatter. So antimatter, the way scientists have described it, is that matter in a molecule, in an atom of matter, the electrons, according to their description, they move in one direction, and in antimatter, the electrons move in another direction, like one clockwise, one anti-clockwise. This is the definition of antimatter. So Prabhupada actually corrected the definition. It's good that you are doing antimatter, but what is antimatter? Antimatter means it should not have any qualities that matter has. Not that it is a different version of same matter. So what is matter? Matter is, these 8 elements, and then this is dead. The antimatter means it is not dead. Matter is, temporary. It has a creation and it has destruction. So antimatter means it should not have creation, it should not have destruction. And that is the soul, antimatter. The antimaterial particle is the soul. spiritual particle. So material particle and spiritual particle. So basically, Srila Prabhupada explained antimatter as spiritual. So antimatter is black holes. If you take the Prabhupada definition of antimatter, absolutely not. But if the scientist definition of antimatter, well, we don't even care, because what do they understand of what is matter and what is, they don't even understand matter. They're talking about antimatter. They don't understand matter, first of all. They think they do. So their whole definitions itself are based on complete wrong understanding. So as far as I am concerned, I don't even give much importance to their definitions, to be very honest. They may understand some things on a physical level, and they have been able to manipulate certain things, and that's what technology is all about. But to understand the vast expanse of space and things that are way beyond this atmosphere of the earth, they actually cannot know. Within the atmosphere of the earth, yes, they can manipulate to a certain extent, and kind of squeeze things out of it. But beyond this atmosphere, I have no faith in what they speak about, whatever they speak. Especially after reading Srila Prabhupada's books, they actually don't know anything. So why should I even concern myself with the definitions of matter or antimatter? I would take Srila Prabhupada's definition of antimatter and say that black hole is not at all an antimatter, and black hole also is their definition, so I don't really care. So antimatter is spiritual, and that is what we are. So Dhiradas, no, scientifically it's not like that. When gigantic star dies, whose mass is 7 times more than that of our sun, then it becomes a black hole after its fuel become exhausted. That is when all of its hydrogen is completely converted into helium through atomic fusion. Yeah, this is the scientific definition, and that is not exactly scientific, because that is what the scientists think they are dealing with science, when they are actually dealing with speculation. We are dealing with science. So first of all, you have to understand that. So they may give whatever definition star going. First of all, their understanding of star is wrong. Now you are actually subscribing to their definition of a star, a gigantic star. Now according to what you understand as a star is like the sun, self-illuminating body. But according to Krishna, star is not like the sun. Star is like the moon, which reflects the light of the sun. And that is explained here in the Bhagavad Gita. (10:21). You see here, Adityanam aham Vishnur Jyotisham Raviram Shuman Marichirmarutamasmin Nakshatranam aham Shashi. Nakshatranam aham Shashi. Of the Adityas I am Vishnu, of lights I am the radiant sun, of the Maruts I am Marichi, and among the stars I am the moon. Now in the purport of this, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning, among the stars the moon is the most prominent at night, and thus the moon represents Krishna. It appears from this verse that the moon is one of the stars. Therefore the stars that twinkle in the sky also reflect the light of the sun. The theory that there are many suns within the universe is not accepted by Vedic literature. The sun is one, and as by the reflection of the sun, the moon illuminates, and so also do the stars. Since Bhagavad Gita indicates herein that the moon is one of the stars, the twinkling stars are not suns but are similar to the moon. So that's precisely why I absolutely don't care about their definitions, because they don't make sense from the Vedic perspective. Okay, they don't even know how even the entire space and the planetary systems are situated. So that's why, see how Srila Prabhupada challenged just by one statement of Krishna, among the stars I am the moon, instead of doubting, hey, how can Krishna say like that? How among the stars, but stars are like the suns, right? How can he say he is like the moon? Something is not correct, That happens to a neophyte devotee, when he has more faith in the so-called imperfect scientist rather than the perfect Krishna. Whereas a pure devotee, he absolutely, however much controversial it may sound, he has absolutely no respect for the speculations of the mundane scientists. He only cares about what Krishna says, and if people are going to laugh at him, hey, how can you say like that? Moon is one of the stars, and then so be it. He just sticks with what Krishna says. So that's exactly how Srila Prabhupada said they never landed on the moon. It was a big hoax. And true enough, they never landed on the moon. So all these things are, why should we be fooled by these hoodwinkers? So let me tell you this. So scientifically, black holes are never mentioned in the Shastra, so they don't exist. And stars are not like suns, they are like moons. And antimatter is actually spiritual matter, spirit, and that is in the spiritual world, that is the antimaterial world, and we are antimaterial particles, and the antimaterial ultimate particle or the ultimate substance is the absolute truth, and that is Krishna. So this is the perfect description and definitions of all these terms. We have to redefine all these terms because it's wrongly defined there by the scientists. So I hope that answers all the questions, and thank you very much for joining. And we'll meet again. And tomorrow is Gaura Purnima, the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu here in Singapore. Other parts of the world, I don't know when they're celebrating. I think tomorrow or Monday, I don't know. So tomorrow and Sunday is Gaura Purnima day. So wish you a very happy Gaura Purnima festival. And of course we would actually celebrate it with much more grandeur otherwise, but because of COVID we can't have a very grand celebration, just inside people, devotees. So if you can, you read about the appearance. Actually, I thought of reading about the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but again that's a long topic, and anyway we are going through the sequence, so it will eventually come. So I just wanted to continue from where we left off. And for Gaudiya Vaishnavas, this is the new year, Gaura Purnima, and the Purnima is the first day of the month, and then Chaturdasi will be the last day of the month for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. It's like that. Vijay Sharma Prabhu is saying tomorrow in UK. Dimitri is saying there are a lot of arguing about this verse because in PrabhupadaBooks.com it is not said that moon has reflection, like GBC have changed the Bhagavad Gita. Well, still the point remains the same, that yes, in Bhagavatam also the moon is explained. I actually did not look at the original PrabhupadaBooks.com version, but still Prabhupada still said the point that moon is one of the stars and not the sun, one of the stars. So that part he still said it. So the reflection, well, I can understand why that can be this thing, because in the Bhagavatam it is said that the light of the moon is caused by a second type of fire. Let's see that. You see, this is 5.20.13 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Outside the ocean of liquor, first of all, our scientists have no understanding. They are saying black holes, but we're talking about ocean of liquor. Is another island known as Kushadvipa, which is 800,000 yojanas or 6,400,000 miles wide, twice as wide as the ocean of liquor. It means the Kushadvipa island is twice as wide as the ocean of liquor. As Shalmali Dvipa is surrounded by a liquor ocean, Kushadvipa is surrounded by an ocean of liquid ghee, as broad as the island itself. On Kushadvipa, there are clumps of kusha grass from which the island takes its name. This kusha grass, which was created by the demigods by the will of the Supreme Lord, appears like a second form of fire, but with the very mild and pleasing flames. Its young shoots illuminate all directions. Of course, this is not talking about the moon. Let me. Oh, yeah. Here in the purport. From the descriptions in this verse, we can make an educated guess about the nature of the flames on the moon. Like the sun, the moon must also be full of flames, because without flames there cannot be illumination. The flames on the moon, however, unlike those on the sun, must be mild and pleasing. This is our conviction. The modern theory that the moon is full of dust is not accepted in the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. In regard to this verse, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Sushashpani Sukomala Shikhas Tesham Rochisha. The kusha grass illuminates all directions, but its flames are very mild and pleasing. This gives some idea of the flames existing on the moon. So maybe, let me see the PrabhupadaBooks.com version of it. It's an interesting point, because if Prabhupada did not say about the reflection, 10.21, isn't it? So I'm sorry you can't see what I'm seeing because it's on the computer screen, but I can make you see as well actually. If I do this, that's huge. Let me make that small. And if I just go and see this, that's interesting. Among the stars, the moon is the most prominent at night, and thus the moon represents Krishna. And that's all that is mentioned here. Among all the luminaries twinkling in the sky, the sun is the chief. And in the Brahma Samhita, the sun is accepted as the glowing effulgence of the Supreme Lord and is considered one of the eyes. Marichi is the controlling deity of the heavenly spaces. Among the stars, the moon is most prominent at night. So he still says that the moon is one of the stars, and thus the moon represents Krishna. But the other part is not mentioned, which is interesting. Yeah. But the moon, the light of the moon is again caused by something else, and then the scientists are saying that there's dust on the moon. So there is so much anomaly. So that is why we don't have much faith in exactly how these scientists describe things. But very good point, Dimitri Prabhu, that that's not mentioned in the original version. That's interesting. Let me just. Okay, so any other questions? Fasting till moonrise, for Gaura Purnima, correct. Alright, thank you very much. Hey, when will be the next live? Tomorrow, no. Monday, no. Wednesday will be the next live. Wednesday evening Bhagavad Gita class, 7:30 p.m. Hey, what's that? Oh, another question. I admit that human beings might not have gone to the moon, but they have successfully sent many satellites to moon and also to other planets. What about this? We don't agree. We don't agree at all. But even if they do send, what those instruments can see is, again, not exactly how life exists there. Like we know from the Vedic literature that every single planet is full of life, and in fact, the succulent fruits and vegetables, they become succulent, that means they become juicy because of the moon. They of course take light of the sun, but they also take light of the moon, the plants. So if moon can give so much juice to the vegetables and plants here on earth, you think moon has no plants? Just some black dust, that too? When it is reflecting or giving off white light, how come there is black dust? So all of these are very contradictory, you see. So don't keep too much faith in the so-called scientists. There's a lot of cheating going on in that circle. That's why we have to present the real science which is described in our Vedic scriptures. Alright, I think we'll stop here. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Gaur Purnima Maha Mahotsav ki jai, Nityananda Ram ki jai, Ananta Gaudiya Vaishnava Vrind ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.